Maybe you just weren't cut out for this, son. The principal's words still burned in Ethan Cross's ears as he held the third rejection letter of the month. 17 years old, 3 years at Woodbridge Preparatory, and now, pressed against the icy window of his dorm room as November snow fell outside, he finally accepted the inevitable. He was a failure. Not the temporary kind, the sort you could fix with more effort. No, this was permanent, the kind of failure where some kids just aren't made to learn. Outside, the campus buzzed with confident students, discussing Plato and calculus like they were chatting about the weather. Ethan watched through the fogged glass, feeling like an imposter moments away from being kicked off the stage. Principal Reynolds had been almost too kind that morning, suggesting technical programs and vocational training in that tone adults use when trying to console a kid. Pity. That word stung more than any direct insult ever could. Because Ethan wasn't stupid, he knew that. But while his classmates absorbed information effortlessly, he lagged behind, struggling to even understand the questions. Words danced across the page. Equations were indecipherable codes. And the harder he tried, the tighter anxiety gripped him. That night, desperate for air, he broke curfew and slipped out the back, his feet sinking into the snow as he wandered aimlessly along the edge of the campus. That's when he spotted the old stone barn, half hidden among pines, a faint light flickering through its grimy windows. The door creaked, oil and hay, and there she was, Martha, the old caretaker who had refused to leave the land when the school had bought it decades ago, bent over a tractor with a can of oil in her calloused hands. She looked up, unsurprised. "You're that boy, the one they think can't learn." Ethan swallowed hard. "I just needed to walk." "Then walk," Martha said, motioning toward the stone staircase leading to the loft. "But be careful. These steps have seen 43 years of my boots." Ethan climbed slowly. His fingers traced the deep depressions in the stone, perfectly molded grooves, as if the rock itself had bent under invisible weight. "What made these marks?" he asked from above. Martha wiped her hands on her overalls. "Nothing special, just farmers. My grandfather, my father, me. Every morning, every night. Boots on stone, day after day after day." Her eyes met his. "Do you see what you're really looking at? It wasn't strength, it was showing up, one step at a time, every single day, for 100 years. Something stirred in Ethan's chest. Not hope, it was smaller, more fragile. A question. What if consistency was the secret? When he stepped back into the snow, the world felt a little less impossible. That night, while his classmates slept the sleep of those who had never doubted themselves, Ethan sketched out a ridiculously simple plan. Show up. Every day. No excuses.
5 a.m. The alarm sliced through the silence like a blade. Ethan was already up, filling a thermos with stolen cafeteria coffee, grabbing his books. The library was still locked. He settled on the marble steps with a flashlight and that stubborn determination born from having no other choice. Flashcards. Hundreds of them. Latin vocabulary, chemistry formulas, historical dates. His fingers stained blue from cheap ink. He wrote and rewrote the same information until it started to feel familiar, until it made a crooked sort of sense. The first few weeks were brutal, throbbing headaches, constant fatigue, eyes burning. And then came the first test. 52%. Failed. Again. His Latin teacher called him aside after class. "Ethan, I've noticed you coming in early, staying late. I don't want you burning yourself out chasing something that maybe—" Genuine concern furrowed her brow. "Not everyone is cut out for the academy, and there's no shame—" "I'm fine," he cut in sharp. "I'm just showing up." He began visiting Martha weekly, helping with small tasks in comfortable silence. One afternoon, stacking firewood, she paused on the worn steps. "You know what's funny about these steps? People think the stone gave in, But really, it's the boots that never quit. The boots never quit. That became his mantra when he woke exhausted, when he failed another test, when others laughed at him in the library. Winter turned to spring, oaks budded, and something subtle began to shift. Not dramatic, no sudden revelation. Quiet, gradual. Equations started to make sense. Latin words formed patterns. On tests, his scores stopped falling. 58%, then 63%. A glorious 70% that almost made him cry. His classmates noticed. Some of the insecure ones began asking questions. How did you memorize the entire periodic table? Flashcards, about 300 times. Isn't it boring? Ethan shrugged. Stone doesn't wear down because it's exciting. It wears down because the boot keeps stepping. They looked at him like he'd lost his mind. Maybe he had. But something was working. Slowly, painfully, but it was working.
The envelope arrived in April of his final year. Thick paper, embossed crest. The college counselor asked to see him immediately. Ethan walked in expecting another lecture about being realistic. Instead, he found Mrs. Chen with an unreadable expression, somewhere between amusement and disbelief. Sit down, Ethan. She slid a paper across the desk. SAT results. 95th percentile. How was all he could manage? Ethan, you've worked harder than any student here these past 2 years. You didn't get smarter. You became relentless. Acceptance letters came in a flood. Boston University, Northeastern, and then, impossibly, Brown University, and Ivy. The boy who was almost expelled was going to the Ivy League. On graduation day, June sunlight bathing the campus, Ethan found Martha in the barn. She was slower now, back bent, but still there. He pulled a photo from his pocket, himself in cap and gown, standing beside the worn steps. I made this for you, to remember. The boots never quit. Martha held the photo, studying it long and hard. She tucked it into her shirt pocket over her heart. I never thought they would, son. 20 years later, Dr. Ethan Cross stood at Yale, giving a seminar on neuroplasticity. His research proved it. Sustained, incremental effort creates structural change in the brain. The boy who once couldn't learn had become an expert in how humans learn. On the office wall, framed, a black and white photograph of the worn steps. Students always asked. Ethan leaned back, a faint smile on his lips, and spoke of Martha, boots, and Stone, about showing up when everyone else said he was useless. The world will tell you that you weren't made for this, that some people are gifted and you're not. But here's the truth. Talent is the stone. Persistence is the boot. And the boot always wins. Not because it's stronger, but because it never stops showing up. A pause. The words settling in. So ask yourself, are you willing to be the boot? In the front row, a young woman with tired eyes, that particular kind of self-doubt, raised her hand. Professor, how long did it take before you felt like you belonged? Ethan thought of those 5 a.m. mornings, stained fingers, hundreds of flashcards. He thought of Martha, likely gone by now, but whose lesson remained as solid as those steps. I'm still waiting to feel it fully, but you know what I've learned? Belonging isn't a feeling that arrives. It's a truth you create, one step at a time, until the world has no choice but to make room for you. Something lit in her eyes. After class, Ethan returned to his office and stood before the photograph. With his finger, he traced the outline of the worn steps. Martha had been right. The stone hadn't given up. It had witnessed. It was the boots, persistent and stubborn, that rewrote reality one step at a time. That was the only real magic, the willingness to keep going when everything urged you to stop. It wasn't glamorous. There were no shortcuts. It was just an ancient truth, worn into stone. Consistency conquers all. You don't have to be extraordinary, you just have to refuse to quit.